Hey, everybody, we're live, and I'm really excited that my friend Marc Guggenheim has agreed to come back and talk about one of my favorite subjects, Star Trek. And one of my favorite films, Star Trek the Motion Picture.
It's funny. It's not a lot of people's favorite film.
Yep, and it's exactly what gets me to the folks. I want you all to go out and buy this. This is an IDG by my friends at IDG. Now I paid for this, so I'm proud to say I paid for this. But my friends at IDG were smart enough to have Marc as one of their authors. How did that come about, by the way?
It's funny. Chris Allo, who's this, he's a former editor of Marvel, and he's still works in the comic book space, and he was just like, I think you and Heather Antos, who heads the Star Wars line for IDW, he's like, I think you and Heather would really hit it off, and I'm like, oh sure. In fact, I'd always wanted to meet Heather, and we had breakfast at New York Comic Con one year, and we were, just talking, and she was saying how they had a need for, like, they wanted to do a mini series with the original crew. And I said, can it be the original crew around the time of the feature films? Because for me, like, I grew up with Star Trek. My entry into Star Trek really was through the Mego action figures. And my dad would watch, episodes of Star Trek, but I never sat and watched a Star Trek from beginning to end until the motion picture.
Wow.
And yeah, so like that. So like in many ways, like the movies really were my Star Trek. And she spoke to Paramount, and they were like, sure, that sounds great. And I pitched them a couple of different story ideas. What became Echoes is the one that they picked, but all the story ideas were sort of set like shortly after the events of the motion picture, mainly because, like I said, that's my Star Trek, but also I felt like there was some things to sort of, get at, there were some things to sort of not explain necessarily, but there were open questions at the end of the motion picture that I thought, oh, I can use the comic book to answer them. And that would be a bit of fun for me because, when I work in a licensed space, like Star Wars or Star Trek or Planet of the Apes, I always am sort of looking to do three things. Obviously, one, I want to play with the toys. Number two, I want to add some new toys of my own. And number three, whenever I can, I want to try to fill in some plot gaps, in the grand mythology. Again, not every single time, but usually I feel like if I can do 2 out of 3 in a given project, I'm going to be pretty happy with the result.
Yeah. Hey, so you said also, I have to add, that's interesting, fascinating, your background in Star Trek, because mine was actually the original series, watching it in Chicago. And then came out to Oakland, and I wanted to start a Star Trek club at Bret Harte Junior High after 6 months at Allendale Elementary. And I remember, I think it was Julie Hoffman told me, you have to meet Bill Boyd and Lars Frigman, like they were a law firm. And they were my friends to this day. Lars unfortunately died in 2018, but they and then Craig Pryor, and we started the Star Trek club. And we had a contest where you had to name the episode, because they would play it twice in the evening. KTV played it at 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So you'd have to name the episode within 10 seconds.
Oh, that's cool.
So we worked the first West Coast Star Trek convention at the Oakland Auditorium.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. One of the very first conventions I went to was a Star Trek convention.
Yeah, we were, and it's formed our lives. It's amazing what it's done for us. So, as far as, and I say all that to ask this question. You were saying that for you, there were loose ends at the end of the Star Trek motion picture. Now, for me, I love it because of its look, but what I want to know what you love about the Star Trek motion picture and what you hate about it.
Well, I also really like the look. I even like the pajama uniforms. I like the Andy Probert's revision of the Enterprise. Obviously, is genius and stands the test of time. I even like the overall sort of like, oh, we're going to approach this not like Star Wars, which it was being compared to at the time, but rather 2001: A Space Odyssey. But that, of course, also tees into the thing I like the least about it, which is this sort of slow, ponderous storyline where it's funny. It's not even like that the story is slow, though it obviously is. It's that the Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise are relatively passive. They're not really doing anything to to move the plot forward, to stop V'ger. Basically, it's like, okay, V'ger's headed, to Earth. We're going to go out there and we're going to, intercept it. And then, what are we going to do when we intercept it? Oh, we're not quite sure. We'll figure it out. And it obviously, the realization that V'ger is the Voyager probe. But like the story itself is just not a very dynamic story in terms of, protagonist, intention, obstacle, basic, Aristotelian poetics. It's lacking that. So it's, in many ways for me, it's an interesting artifact. The movie's a really interesting artifact because there are some things it does so well. And I don't think Robert Wise, who directed the movie, gets enough credit for actually bringing a TV show to the big screen and in a way that makes it feel like a big screen motion picture. We've now seen enough Star Trek movies to know that there are some episodes that feel like there are some movies that feel like extended episodes.
Yeah.
And while one could make the case that that's true for the motion picture from a story perspective, you can't make that case from a production and cinematography perspective. The visuals of it are like big widescreen visuals with, a very, very cool, big, movie moments. I just wish those movie moments and that imagery was in service of a story that was a little bit, quite frankly, more fitting of a film.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was epic in the way it was filmed, but it was very much a G film, if you get my drift.
Totally.
In its writing. But I keep watching it. Why do I keep hungering for more? And why is it that I'm drawn to your book as a result of that? And I got more. I think should have been the movie.
I think honestly, like what the movie in many ways did its job in the sense that it really whetted your appetite for the big screen adventures of this, group of characters. Unfortunately, the reason you're left wanting more is all it does is sort of whet your appetite for it. You gotta wait till Star Trek 2 and beyond to really get that sort of cinematic, propulsive intention, obstacle type of filmmaking.
I want to share this with you because we mentioned it in our email exchange, but there's nothing like at least giving Mr. Collins a little bit of a positive, day in the sun. Here he is at the.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. I know that. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I make sure I have the. I want to make sure I've got the echo off because sometimes the echo it's. Let me turn that. Because if I then I'll do it right. Then I can hear. We can hear him talking. Sorry, Mark. You were to say something, I think. Okay, here we go.
The first Robert Wise directed Star Trek. What do you think of the latest Star Trek?
I loved it, and this is weird, but I'm not really a Star Trek aficionado, and so I haven't seen a lot of the movies, but the new one I think
longer. Does that make a difference to you?
It didn't make a difference to me, but it probably, I think a lot of Oscar voters, I know a lot of Oscar voters fill out their ballot at the last minute. I was sending mine by messenger this year on Monday, and they're due at the end of Tuesday. I've often sent it in on Tuesday. And the messenger service said, when I told them Price Waterhouse, he said, "Oh, you and everybody else today." So
I'll stop it right there because there's more of that, but it goes off track. But heck of a nice guy, I have to say. I'm just a heck of a nice guy, and we all know the other story, I think. But I just wanted to present that because that was a favorite to me. He was shocked that I recognized him.
I don't know what went down on the set of Seventh Heaven. I don't even remember, quite frankly, what he was accused of. I will say that I worked with Stephen on a show called No Ordinary Family, and he was an absolute delight and one of the actors I most enjoyed working with. And I loved talking Star Trek with him and Tales of the Gold Monkey and Tactures, and he's been involved with so much. So much that I really, really love and appreciate. That I just found him absolutely delightful to talk to. And it's a shame that he's been canceled because I think he really did. He brought something to the projects he worked on.
Yeah, and especially Star Trek. And for me, I think everybody deserves a second chance. That's just the way that I roll. But
sure.
Now whatever happened after will never take away from how I feel about his performance in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. I also think there's something so interesting about this dynamic that Kirk, has been promoted out of the chair. He, is basically sort of using this crisis as a pretext for getting back into the chair. But of course, the body he has to step over in order to do that is Decker's. There's just, I think that's just a real rich, interesting, quite frankly, unexpected sort of element in the movie. It's not something you really were anticipating going into it. So it's a shame that that storyline didn't get a chance to progress in future films.
Hey, regarding this wonderful book, I want to first of all congratulate you for basically when you open up the page, folks, you get hit with what's happening. Okay, I don't know if you can see this or not through the screen. I've got
that's being tyroned out, unfortunately.
It might. Okay, let me.
Yeah,
there may be.
I think you and what's the comic book, so it doesn't know what.
I have an idea. I think because I don't necessarily need to have that there, so I'll just I'll delete it. Yeah, and so now, as the Squire of Gothos would say, let's have at it again. Ta-da!
There you go.
Yeah. Much,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is like the second page, folks.
Yeah, I don't waste a lot of time. The sort of the pitch on the opening sequence of the book was, I said I want to open it like a Star Wars movie, and really like my note to the artists were I want the readers to think, until we get to that splash, that's the splash I was waiting for. Until we get to that splash, I want the readers to think for a second, did I pick up the copy of the wrong book? It's like, should feel very Star Wars until we go total Star Trek. And that was part of the fun.
No better way to do that than this, right?
I mean, they did such an amazing job. Really, I was very blessed with this art team. The acting, the figures, the colors, everything, the ship designs, just all I think really sing and level up the whole book.
Not at the risk of giving too much away, but still, I love the fact that Uhura is the main protagonist here. Starts off that way.
Uhura and Chekhov
it's been more well used already.
Well, I love writing Kirk and Spock and McCoy. That's a fun dynamic, and I don't know any writer worth their salt who doesn't enjoy writing those three. But for me, I always enjoyed the Star Treks, the movies and the shows where you focused, or at least you had the other characters got a chance to shine. You know, like in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, when Uhura, you know, basically commandeers the transporter room so that, you know, they can steal the Enterprise, or like Sulu flipping the security guard over his shoulder, like stuff like that. I really just enjoy as a fan. So I wanted to make sure there were some moments like that where the non-Trinity gets a chance to, you know, show their stuff a bit.
You have an interesting scene where Uhura won.
Yes, talks to herself.
Yeah, this was some cool stuff, Mark.
Thank you.
I applaud you on that. That was really well done, my friend. This is great.
Thank you very much. I love you know, I absolutely, you know, I love the character of Uhura. I think Nichelle Nichols did such a great job bringing her to life, like to the point where I really just sort of heard her voice in my head and just took dictation pretty much. You know, I'll tell you a funny Nichelle Nichols story. A few months ago, Marvel published their second omnibus of the Micronauts, the original Micronaut series from the 1980s, and I was invited to write the sort of prologue, the foreword for it. And in so doing, I went back and I went through all those issues of the Micronauts, and sure enough, someone wrote in a fan letter, sort of talking about the death of a character, Biotron, and that person was Nichelle Nichols, and it was the Nichelle Nichols, because she referenced she sort of compared the death of Biotron to the death of Spock in you know, in Wrath of Khan. So it's just you know, I was like, wow, Nichelle Nichols was not just a comic book fan, but like a hardcore comic book fan, like so hardcore that she's reading a book like the Micronauts, which is not part of the mainstream sort of Marvel lineup, obviously, but also enough to write in, you know, write an actual letter. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, you know, I had the pleasure of meeting her. Actually, I interviewed her at a Star Trek party in 2009. And it's right here on YouTube, but it's too long for sure. It's like 15 minutes or whatever, but it was 15 minutes of gold. And she's just a wonderful person. About now, I think she's maybe a year or younger. No, she's same age as my mom, but she's passed on. My mom is 90. So Nichelle Nichols now, I think, would be 90. Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. What a loss. I mean, what a loss.
Yeah. Incredible. How did you come up with a storyline to have dual characters? In other words, basically, the Enterprise crew meets their doppelgangers.
It was sort of, it came out of two things. Number one, I was kind of interested in doing a parallel universe story that didn't involve the mirror universe. You know, I felt like, okay, like if you discount the mirror universe, then the idea of parallel worlds is actually pretty unexplored in Star Trek. So I thought, okay, that's an area that's sort of, you know, ripe for some exploration. That was the first point. The second point was I was intrigued by the initial genesis of the idea was every time, obviously, we you know, see a movie or an episode of Star Trek, it's always through the POV of our characters. And I got very interested in the idea of opening a story from the POV of someone else, you know, from a non-Enterprise crew member POV. And, you know, and sort of when I sort of took that idea and I combined it with the idea of parallel universes, that's sort of how the story started to come together.
And it just carried on from that point, basically.
Yeah.
There's some idea about, well, people in parallel universes shouldn't coexist and all this. You eschewed that, it seems. What?
Yeah, it's funny. I have my whole sort of, I've done a lot of work in the multiverse parallel universe space.
Yeah.
And what I kind of find fun about that sort of subgenre is that you really can come up with your own rules as to how the multiverse functions. And I like to play with those rules, and I like to sort of see what I can, mess around with and change, and all in service, hopefully, of getting some new, some new characters, some new insight. I think for me, what makes parallel universes interesting is not just the opportunity to have these characters all sort of, share the story together, but to me, it's the ultimate expression of the road not taken. Who's not fascinated with, looking at their life going left when it really should have gone right, and I thought, oh, this is just a good opportunity to, at least with respect to Chekhov and Uhura, give them an opportunity to see what their potential was, both for good and bad.
And work on the Russian dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I will say that was a lot. Doing Chekhov's Russian dialogue was a great deal of fun.
Yeah, that was good. I found myself trying to mouth this I thought this is good.
Thank you. It's tricky because you don't want to overdo it, because Walter Koenig doesn't overdo it. You don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, you want it to come across on the page. It's very different, writing dialogue for a comic book is very different from writing dialogue for live action. But I had a lot of fun with that. That was enjoyable. I mean, these characters are so familiar to me at this point that I really do just hear their voices in my head and go from there.
Do you cry out to have this made into a movie? I know we talked about the current climate. Well, we talked about it off camera. What's
I would love to tackle Star Trek in live action. I wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, this is the story to adapt. I think I'd rather come up with sort of my own, sort of story. But I love Trek, and I love what Trek has sort of become, which is it's not just, Kirk and company. It's, and it's not just Picard and company. It really is incredibly expansive, and you can have different characters, different circumstances. There's now so many different time periods that you can select from. To me, Star Trek it's all about, hope and exploration. And as long as you're, I think, boldly going where no one has gone before, I think you're safely in Star Trek territory. And I'd love to come up with a movie or a TV show that, could explore that from my own perspective, maybe one of these days.
Yeah. You have this path of taking something from, in this case, Star Trek, the motion picture, but you said also something really intriguing. You said there were some loose ends that were tied up that this deals with, and I've not quite finished it. I want to make sure I got it. I thought, you know what, let me interview him, and then
it's not really. I can tell you, they're not really spoilers by any means. Well, there's sort of like the two biggest issues to me coming out of Star Trek: The Motion Picture is we know that Kirk retakes the Enterprise in response to the V'ger crisis, and we know that McCoy comes back in response to the V'ger crisis. But we know also at the end of the movie there is no more V'ger crisis.
Right.
So why is Kirk still sitting in the chair, and why is Bones still on the Enterprise? Why isn't Bones regrowing his beard and going back to retirement?
Yeah, I thought the Enterprise, the Starfleet director basically says, "Why are you still here?" in this book. Yeah. I thought it was great.
I wasn't subtle about it by any means. I was not subtle about it. And because to me it's like, I don't think it's the elephant in the room necessarily, but it's a question. It's a question I sort of had as a kid watching Star Trek II, going, wait a second, like why? What's going on here? I thought, okay, I can take an opportunity to give my answer to that, certainly like, the scene where Spock and McCoy sort of basically have that conversation, was a lot of fun to write because it deals with, I think McCoy's an interesting character in the sense that, there's a version of him that you could say is kind of selfish, at least at this period of his life, when he's, dragooned back into service by Kirk in motion picture, he's not happy about it. He's not being noble about it. If anything, the whole thing just seems annoying to him. And I will say, I love writing McCoy as a curmudgeon. He's a great dude.
I like this. It says, okay, Spock, I'll bite. What's at play? Your often and repeated assertion that you intend to return to retirement. Where the hell do you get that from? I can hear. That's great. Yeah.
Again, that's what good acting does. It's not the number of years we've spent with these actors and these characters. It's the quality of the performances.
He says the aforementioned well-being of our fellow crew members depends on the best chief medical officer available remaining on board this ship. You are that officer. And I can hear Leonard Nimoy saying that in that voice. And he goes on, McCoy, are you implying that I'm being selfish by going back to retirement? I am implying no such thing. I am stating it outright. Commander Spock, Commander here. Incoming vessel, sir. It's Lieutenant Commander Sulu. I mean, the feel of this feels like Star Trek is what I'm getting at.
Thank you. Thank you.
You nailed it, man. You freaking nailed it. That's some
Thank you very, very much.
Great stuff, man.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write. I truly enjoyed it. And would love to, love to do it again. Love to get back in that space. I pitched IDW a murder mystery Star Trek. I basically introducing what is the FBI equivalent in Starfleet? And of course, the protagonist is a Vulcan because who makes a better detective than a Vulcan? Mm-hmm. It's a great deal of fun. It's crazy. It goes from, it literally goes from the original series era to the Next Generation era. Because I've got a Vulcan, I can have a long lifespan for the story. Because they're not going to get old and die on me. And it was great fun to do.
It's hold on 1 second, Mark. Sorry about that. It's one of those things. But anyway.
Oh, good. I get it. Believe me.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was getting at is I'm going to get back on my bicycle here. What's going on is we've got a pipe being fixed downstairs.
I get it. I've been there.
And it was something that could have been dealt with without me being down there.
Totally understand.
Yeah, totally. So that's what it was. Well, anyway, have you met J.J. Abrams?
Ish. Believe it or not, I went out on a series of dates with JJ's sister when I first moved out here. So I did meet him at a birthday party for her. But unfortunately never had any substantive conversations, which is a shame because I think, we'd obviously have a lot to talk about.
Wow. Because I think I know somebody who might be able to facilitate getting this in his face. I think this needs to be in his face. I really do. So,
I appreciate
it. Is the entertainment industry coming back in California?
Not really. Not yet. No, unfortunately there's a ways to go before we're okay again. yeah, the business has really been decimated through a whole host of factors, and all those factors, unfortunately, are still in play. And like right now, we're entering this stage that I sort of describe as like willful denial, where people are like post the fires, post the holidays, the new year, and everything, the election. Like people are starting to pitch new projects, and we're all pretending like it's back to normal, but it's not back to normal. So we're all pitching, and studios are hearing pitches as if there was a real market, and by a market I mean as if the studios were actually buying things and making things, and generally speaking, they're really not. And I don't, I mean, yes, there's every now and again, there's a new TV show. Every now and again, there's a new movie. But generally speaking, things have kind of ground to a halt. So it's gonna remain like this for a while longer, I'm afraid. This may actually even be the new normal,
Oh no.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, everyone said survive till 25, and I think then they got to 25 and realized, yeah, that didn't work. Things didn't magically get better once the calendar turned. Which I kind of had said to people, I'm like, just because you have a rhyme doesn't mean the universe is going to agree with you, and it also doesn't mean that those factors that led to the destruction of the business went away. All the problems that we had in 2024 are still present in 2025.
And also, that's regardless of location, because we're 15 minutes from what we used to be called Pinewood Studios. Now it's Trilith out here. Yeah, and they're feeling the pinch as well. But also, people are relocating from our state to this state.
Well, it's funny. I know so many people who are like thinking about moving out of California, who already have moved out of California, because at the end of the day, it's very expensive to live in Los Angeles. There's virtually no production here, so your need to actually be here in order to work in the entertainment business is gone. It's a real challenge. In the wake of the fires, there's a movement to try to get production to return to Los Angeles. I hate to be cynical, but I'll believe that when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some real fundamental problems, honestly.
And they got Las Vegas trying to build one between Sony and Warner Brothers, as I understand it, right? So that's
the thing. They'll create studios and stages and all sorts of things all over the world. Just don't want to do it in Los Angeles. And there's a variety of different sort of political and tax-based reasons for that. At the end of the day, there's sort of two different problems. There's one problem of just a general decrease in production all over, and then there is what has been like a 10 to 15 year long, decimation of production in Los Angeles specifically, and both of those circumstances are caused by different things and need to be addressed by different measures at the end of the day.
Now, I didn't read Marc's bio at the start, so I'm going to do it right now.
Okay.
Born September 24th, 1970. Young man. I'm 62. Zenny 62. He's there for a reason. American screenwriter, television producer, comic book writer, great one, and a novelist. Best known as the creator of the television series Eli Stone, Arrow, the Arrowverse, Legends of Tomorrow, executive producer of the animated series Tales of Arcadia, as well as the writer of the feature films Green Lantern and Percy, I saw twice, by the way, Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. And I got to ask you, you got any more Arrow in you?
The answer is always yes. I think it would be a lot of fun to revisit Arrow at the right time. I'm not sure we're only 5 years removed from the end of the show. I'm not quite sure if it's the right time just yet. It feels a little premature to me. Yeah, I would absolutely love to revisit that world and those characters for sure. When the timing's right.
Folks, I want everybody to go out and get this book. Seriously, this is a great book, and get this. This should be a movie. I would love to see this as a movie. I really would.
I personally would just love to see another Star Trek movie. I'm guessing, it doesn't have to be this one. It's just I just want to see a Star Trek movie.
What's the scuttlebutt about, or rumors about Shatner in line to do?
I saw that he made some sort of comment at a comic book convention in Vancouver that that he was in conversations with someone about something Star Trek related. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I was certainly tantalized by that.
You should write something based on how he would, storyline around Shatner now at what, 94, 93?
Yeah.
And I think, what would you do? Well, wait a minute. You'd have to have Sir Pat in it. Just to me, there's something about the fact that they're still both still here. You got to take advantage of it.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, especially given the fact that Generations did not give us the matchup between Picard and Kirk that I think we all deserve. That would be incredible. I mean, honestly, that would be spectacular. They better get going because neither one of those gentlemen is getting any younger. And obviously you'd have to deal with, the death of Kirk in Generations, but it's Star Trek. That's right. That's doable.
We have the multiverse, right? As
I was gonna quote Spock and say there are always possibilities. But I'd love to see that. I really, really would. It feels a little bit right now like there's no grand plan for Star Trek, which I know is a systemic and a chronic problem with Star Trek. But Alex Kurtzman is doing the TV stuff, which is all well and good, but that appears to be divorced from the feature stuff. And on the feature side, you don't know if it's in the Kelvin timeline or in the original series timeline. Don't know what they're doing. I told Terry Matalas, who did Star Trek Picard season 3, the genius season of television. I was like, I think he's the guy to write an Endgame style movie that would pull together characters from all the different shows and all the different time periods, and let's get Janeway and Kirk and Sisko and Picard and you name it on the bridge of the Enterprise again. I think that would be incredible. And like I said, I think it would be you could do it in a way that still felt very, very Star Trek, because this is kind of like what Star Trek does, So I just wanted it as a fan.
And I got to ask you also, Superman's coming out July 11th.
Yes.
Thoughts?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't know. I mean, I want to love it. I want it to be great. I think I'm just anxious. I think, I don't want to speak for everyone else. I've been burned enough times as a viewer, like as a member of the audience. Like, I just want it to be good. I just want it to be good. And there's a lot, there's a lot that's encouraging for sure. I'll be there opening day, praying that it's as good as we deserve it to be. I personally think that if you don't do a Superman movie with the intention of that movie getting the Best Picture nomination for the Oscars that year, you're doing something wrong.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I had the pleasure. I met and interviewed Elio Salkind. I met him. There's actually an interview I did right here at Zenny 62. Unfortunately, the backstory though is I interviewed that man for 2 solid hours. No, excuse me, 4 hours. 2 hours on 2 separate days, and I can't find this is before digital, this is tape.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. I can't find the tape.
Oh, so, sorry.
I got that part, and I know you know, if he's still alive, you're probably like, yeah, I gave you all of that time, and I wouldn't blame him. I would say, you're absolutely right, sir. You did, right? Oh, but he's that kind of guy you were talking about making a film for.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mario Puzo and like the people that they threw at the original Superman movie in terms of talent, you know, it's just crazy. You know, like, I mean, it will never happen in my lifetime, but Steven Spielberg directing a Superman movie, like, who wouldn't want to see that, you know? So I you know, I just want it to be good, you know, and that's not true. I want it to be great, you know. I feel like you know, it's the greatest superhero ever. It should be one of the greatest movies ever.
Hey, so what else you got working on that we should know about or go out and get?
Ooh, good question. Well, a lot of the stuff I'm working on hasn't been announced yet, but oh, you know what? Actually, that is true, but I'm forgetting. Next week on March 5th, my next Star Wars series comes out.
Okay.
Star Wars Nights. It takes place before the events of the Phantom Menace, so it's the Jedi at the height of their powers, being Jedi and being classes. And what's fun about the book is each book is self-contained. Each story is self-contained, so it's very much a throwback in that sense, in the sense that each issue, kind of like Brave and the Bold or Marvel 2-in-1, I'm focusing on a pair of like 2, sometimes 3 Jedi on an adventure together, and each adventure is its own done-in-one morsel, like one little mini Star Wars movie per month. And what's really exciting is the artist Madibek Muzbekov. He's actually drawing the first 10 issues consecutively. So unlike most monthly books where you have to sort of spell the artists, we've actually been working on the book. First of all, Madibek's very fast, but also we've been working on the book for so long that we're actually able to give you 10 months with the exact same creative team, which is such a rare, special thing these days.
Wow. So Star Wars Dark Droids and D Squad, is that?
Oh yeah, that came out last year. That was Dark Droids was a line-wide Star Wars event, and D Squad sort of spun off of it. It was basically in response to this scourge that is affecting droids throughout the galaxy. R2 sort of forms the Droid Avengers to try to save his friend 3PO, and it was a great deal of fun. Salva Espin drew it and did such a great job. You know, one of my rules when I write Star Wars is that I only give myself the same narrative tools that they have in the live action movies. So, you know, just the same way R2 only speaks in beeps and you never know what R2 is thinking, you know, same deal. Like, there's no narration telling you what's in, you know, R2's head. You've got to figure it all out from the beeps and the character, you know, poses and everything. And that's where Salva was so genius, because he really sort of helped me, you know, tell the story about R2 and these droids. So it was great fun.
Wow. Mark, you got to come back.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a fan. So, hey, this is awesome, man. This is great. Hey, where can we can go to your website, right? Is it Mark?
Yeah, I've got a website, marcguggenheim.com, and there's a link if people want to email me. I also publish a mostly weekly newsletter, comes out every Friday, called Legal Dispatch on Substack. So that's marcguggenheim.substack.com. And I'll, you know, in that I talk about the stuff I'm working on. Sometimes I'll talk about, like, you know, writing advice. Sometimes I'll talk about the state of the business, such as it is. Sometimes I try to every week to include something that I call From the Vault, which is like some piece of art or costume design or, you know, set schematic related to the Arrowverse. You know, sometimes there'll be pieces of scripts. You know, it's sort of it's a combination of whatever strikes my fancy and whatever people write in saying that they're curious about. So and I'm also on Instagram.
Mark, Thank you. And hey, don't move a muscle. Everybody, we'll be back. More from the NFL Combine. Bill Carroll is there representing Zenny 62 Media. We've got a lot going on. And subscribe to Zenny 62 on YouTube and bookmark our newest site, ZennyReport.com. And also bookmark OscarsMovieNews.com, our another news site, Mark. We've been expanding since the last time we were around.
Love it. You're like a media mogul now. This is great. I love this.
Hey, would you quick news, everybody. Because I was so deep in the weeds of battling security attacks and everything on my sites, it didn't occur to me to press what basically is the aggregator button to see what all of the sites are getting. But cut to the chase, over the last 30 days, as of last Sunday, our Zenny 62 WordPress sites, only we have 100, but 8 of them are WordPress sites. 4.85 million unique visitors over the past 30 days.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very impressive. Just very, very cool.
Yeah. Anger encoding, or I should say angry coding helps.
I love it. I write angry a lot of times too, so I totally relate.
Stick around. You don't have to move a muscle. That ends the stream, folks. And hey, buy his books. Live long and prosper. wait. Let's get Mark full screen because I think you got half the screen. I think it's like if I get your full screen there. Hold on. Give you a solo layout. There you are. Yeah, I got the solo layout. Okay, so now then I'll give it back to dual layout. There we go. All right, and that is